A lot of NFL free agents have found their home for the next season. There are some that are still out there, and a lot of these guys are Jeremy's contemporaries, guys that he played in the league at the same time as. And I want to kind of go through them, see if any are potential fits for the Saints, but also how much gas is left in the tank for these guys. So I'll get Jeremy's thoughts on that. This is from a piece by Tyler Sullivan on CBSSports.com. Julio Jones still looking for a landing point, and this piece by Tyler Sullivan kind of lays out a best-case scenario for these players, and they're looking at Julio Jones, and he says the obvious landing spot is the Colts because that's where Matt Ryan is playing. I think it's pretty obvious that the Saints are set at wide receiver. They've addressed it in the draft. They've addressed it in free agency. I think they've got what they need there, so Julio would not be a fit for the Saints. But how much do you think Julio has left?
Yeah, I think for Julio, I think the talent is always going to be there. I think with him, it's always been the injuries, and a guy that big and that strong, moving that fast, it's normally not supposed to happen that way. And so normally he gets nicked a little bit with the injuries, and I think that's kind of been his Achilles heel for especially the back end of his career. But I think as far as the talent, if someone can get him a healthy version of him, he can definitely be a threat out there on the field. I still think he has some juice in the tank.
I do too, especially that size. Even in the red zone, he can just kind of push people around and be. I mean, I don't think the days of him being the number one option are necessarily there anymore. But there's got to be some value there to Julio, just not in New Orleans. Jason Pierre-Paul is the next member of this list. He's 33 years old, not necessarily the ferocious pass rusher he once was, but still is in a spot where it's hard to find a lot of really good edge rushers, defensive ends, guys that know how to play that position. I think there's some value there. Could it be in New Orleans?
Yeah, I think anytime you got a team like New Orleans where you got guys who are in and out of the lineup like a Davenport, I think getting depth with a guy like JPP, especially if you can get him at a number that's not going to break your back with the cap. I think for depth purposes, I think he still has something in the tank left. And I think, a guy with that much size and that much length, he can definitely help you out in the run game. And so, I think JPP, he'll be on the roster before the season starts.
As of today, the Saints roster looks fine on the defensive front. The problem is, once the injuries start happening, it looks totally different. So as a depth piece, but the Saints are probably not in position to pay him what it would command to be kind of a depth piece for him. So obviously, I don't think so. Less interested in the Saints here again because of the position, but certainly interested in where the landing spot may be. Odell is still a free agent, and we obviously know that the injury is a huge story with him. But I don't think there's any doubt he's got a lot left in the tank. The question is, where does he fit? In this piece, they say probably be a good fit if he went up to Green Bay.
Yeah, I think right now I just don't see Green Bay pulling that trigger. But as far as
their wide receiving core: Sammy Watkins, Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, and Christian Watson, who's a rookie. Like, that's pretty weak. I mean,
no. As far as talent goes, I think he'd be able to go there and play right away and be get the bulk of the targets. I think the Odell situations, which I think the best fit for me is the Rams, is coming off that injury, being familiar with that offense, having the trust of the coordinator and the head coach. There already. I think it kind of just fits for him to kind of jump back on board with them kind of once he gets healthy during the season. But if he did go to the Packers, I love him with, elite quarterbacks, and boy, would he have one there. And so as far as fit goes, I think he could definitely fit with Aaron Rodgers. I just think it's setting up for him to go back to the Rams.
What do you think he prioritizes? Like, what's the most? There's a culmination of everything that makes you weigh your options. But what do you think is the most important for him?
I think right now it's compensation. I think he wants to get paid as much as he can. He's 29, so probably not a world of years left. It's probably the biggest window he's going to have, before he turns 30 to make some money. But it's just unfortunate he had to get hurt in the Super Bowl. A lot of guys, they're tearing their ACLs at the beginning of the season, September, maybe October. You tear it in February, it sets you back a ton. So I think that's the kind of his biggest thing right now is getting back healthy and trying to see, how much money he can get from a team. But he's got to have a market. I think for him, if he can get back healthy in the middle of the season, I think it'll probably be October, November. Someone will pick him up. I don't know if I could see it being the Packers.
I think your perspective changes when you look at this entire thing for Odell. One, he's almost 30. Mm-hmm. Two, he just got hurt, and that's a big deal at this age. And then three, he's got his championship. Now, I mean, I certainly wouldn't even consider putting any sort of asterisk next to it because you missed the second half, but he scored a touchdown. So like he was a big deal in their playoff push and scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. But once you realize, okay, I'm getting older, I've already checked the box of a championship, plus I'm coming off an injury, like I wouldn't fault the guy for going just for the most dollars and cents he could possibly find. Like I think your perspective changes when those things happen.
Yeah, 100%. I think especially now with being a father, I think more than ever, I think you can speak to that too. You want to get that compensation to help the family out too. So I think for him, I think more than anything now, like you said, he got the championship. You probably the biggest star in sports. You probably want to go somewhere where you're going to get paid a lot. I think right now with the injury, it's going to be hard for him to make that case. But the healthier, the sooner he gets. And from everything I've heard from him, he's above schedule right now. So if he can get back, especially by the middle of the season, I think someone will give him a chance, especially when guys start getting hurt during the season.
A couple more guys I want to touch on here. Dante Hightower, 32 years old, is a free agent, been a key piece on multiple championship teams for the Patriots. As you look at the New Orleans Saints at linebacker, Demario Davis is maybe the best in the league. Pete Werner is a guy that I think they're going to give the keys to here, and he's going to have to be a big piece to this. But the rest of the linebacking core, I mean, how much do you trust Zach Bond? I mean, we thought that was a really good draft pick. He's been kind of uneven. There's not a lot after that. So the question is, does that make sense to bring in a guy if the money works?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a similar situation to JPP. I think if the money works, it's a guy that you feel really great about. He's very, very smart. He's going to know where he's supposed to be. And I think in the run game, too, he's got to help a ton within the run game. And he gives you another body you can put on the edge to rush on third down and get after the passer, too. So that's a guy I think, probably not a ton left in the tank, but I still think he's a veteran presence. And the Saints have struck on a couple of those with Malcolm Jenkins and Demario Davis. Yeah. You can bring another veteran presence there, especially if it's a good price to help that defense.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the money, and I'm not trying to fake things all that often. As far as the way the salary cap goes and how the Saints are able to do some of the things they do, I'm not exceptionally well versed in that. I understand some of it with the deferred stuff and just cutting the check for the roster bonus, and some of that stuff I can get on board with. But as far as understanding it to the decimal point, I can't quite promise you that I can do that. But Dante Hightower is an interesting. He may retire, is kind of the rumor right now as well. There's a lot of wide receivers out there on the open market. I mean, we've gone through a couple, obviously with Odell and Julio Jones. I mean, still looking for a home. T.Y. Hilton, who's not super old and is pretty explosive deep threat when he's healthy, but he's still dealt with some injuries. But that's another nice piece you could add. Cole Beasley is still a free agent, and then he's been a guy that's been super productive in his time. Running back is one of the spots that we think the Saints are kind of looking around. Devontae Booker, is that a guy that makes sense for New Orleans to bring in?
Yeah, I think you're going to need to. I think I agree with a lot of people, especially with it looking like Kamara's going to get, a lengthy suspension. Yeah. Do you feel comfortable just going into the season with just Mark Ingram and just probably Edwards?
No, the answer's no.
Yeah, so I think you're going to have to probably bring, ideally, a veteran guy that you feel good about. Probably not going to get all pro or Pro Bowl production from that guy, but a guy that you can feel like rotating bodies with, and you're not going to run Mark Ingram into the ground, and then now you're in a world where you don't have any running backs. So, yeah, I think a guy like Booker, a guy like David Johnson, someone like that, I think it could definitely help them out.
Booker's 30, which is up there for a running back, but last year he carried the ball 145 times for almost 600 yards, averaged 4 yards a carry, scored a couple touchdowns. I mean, it's a position that we still think the Saints are going to address at some point. This is the only one on this list, Devontae Booker. I think it's probably worth a shot of giving him a pair of shoulder pads and telling him, let's go see what you got.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you're going to get to a point, and it's just football. It's a lot of moving parts, a lot of, big bodies running each other at high speed, so things happen. And so if you're the Saints, if any running back gets hurt, especially a guy that's playing a lot, you're going to be behind the 8 ball. So they're going to have to probably bring in someone. And I think, Booker's a guy that fits that mold, that someone that could sign for sure.
We both thought, and this was in the infancy of our show, when we were kind of watching the Saints in the preseason, and Tony Jones looked pretty good in the preseason, and that didn't translate at all to the regular season. And I realize it's two different deals, but it looked like he had a chance to be the next,
Mm-hmm.
diamond in the rough the Saints have found in a long lineup between Chris Ivory and Pierre Thomas and guys that the Saints have kind of found on the scrap heap that they've turned into really good players. I mean, obviously you traded a bunch to go get Ingram and you invested a lot in Kamara, and they certainly prioritize that position at times, but at other times they've gone ahead and found somebody that became a really productive player for them that wasn't necessary. And I thought there was a chance that Jones was going to be that next guy, and he just wasn't. Any reason why?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell. And I think especially when you get guys from those smaller schools like that, sometimes, it can look like that in the preseason when you're going against guys who probably aren't going to be on the active roster. But, once you start getting into the grit and grind of the season and guys are, fighting for playoff spots and it's really, the upper echelon guys are in the league, that's kind of when you really can tell, which guys are really at that level and which guys are a step above that level. And I think for Tony, kind of when it got to that 53 active man roster, you just didn't see that quite the same burst and quite the same, difference maker that he was in the preseason. And so he's going to have another chance to, rebuttal that and get better. Hopefully, being able to go through a full season, he can kind of see, what he needs to get better in, and maybe he can make that jump going into this year. But I just think last year you just didn't see that same juice you saw from the preseason.
It's, and you think about that Kamara suspension and just when are you going to figure that out? And it's the same kind of feeling you have around LSU basketball where it's like, okay, just tell me what the deal is. Like, I know the deal is coming. I just need to see it. I'm sick of waiting for it. And at this point, you're just kind of sitting there and waiting for what they decide to do with Alvin Kamara, and the courts continue to move really slowly. And to no one's surprise, on the LSU basketball side of things, the NCAA continues to move really slowly.
Thanks so much for watching Hunt Hill on YouTube.
Now do us a favor. Hit the red subscribe button below and throw us a like. We'll see you next time.